Among the ranks of the Unforgiven, no chapter is regarded with more wariness and uncertainty than the Dread Knights. Born during the 21st Cursed founding from the gene seed of Lionel Johnson, this chapter of Adeptus Astartes is renowned for the excessive zeal and murderousness in their persecution of the Imperium's foes, which, while it has given them many victories and much acclaim with those less aware of the almost religious way they engage in their brutally torturous wars, has managed to garner the Knights of Payans a fell reputation. To many of the Scions of the Lion, the Dread Knights are considered to be a rabid hunting animal or a blunt instrument unleashed by Lord Asriel when word of a potential member of the Fallen reaches their ears. For when they are set upon the trail of one of the hated angels, the Brother Templars of the Dread Knights are unrelenting, willing to rampage through entire systems to find and capture even a single one of their treacherous kin. Created during the dark days of the Age of Apostasy, the Dread Knights are something of a reflection of the mad High Lord Gogo Van Dyer, completely consumed with a psychotic zeal and utterly convinced of the rightness of their cause. The Dread Knights have a truly carnage-stricken history, albeit one that cannot be definitely attached to them thanks to the machinations of the Unforgiven and indeed the age they sprung from. The first mention of these insane Marines comes from what may very well be Gogo Van Dyer's only recorded moment of decency and clarity, as a Ecclesiarchy delegation sent to make contact with an up-and-coming crew of Corsairs offering a warrant of trade to make them rogue traders under the High Lord's auspice. When they arrived, what they found was a brutal space battle, though slaughter may be a more accurate term, with the Corsairs being attacked by a Dread Knight fleet led by the chapter's flagship, the terrible Burnt Martyr. Even to the servants of the Age of Apostasy's architect, the sheer level of cruel butchery unleashed by the Marines was horrifying. Quickly escaping and reporting what they had witnessed, they and a force of Fraterist Templars returned and, rather stupidly, demanded that the Astartes they had seen unleash fury beyond sanity on simple Corsairs marshal the rest of their chapter and return to the throne world and explain themselves to the one who spoke with the God Emperor's voice. To say that the Dread Knights were somewhat put out that someone other than the God Emperor himself, their Primarch or the current ruler of the Dark Angels, was attempting to bring them to heel would be to completely and utterly understate the unbridled acrimony of the rulers of Cappadocian, their original homeworld having yet to be destroyed. Several weeks later, after the rather sane demand of Van Dyer had long since slipped from the demented mind of the Ecclesiarch and was only remembered by his most devoted and fearful sycophants, a single ship from the response fleet exited the warp into the orbit of Ophelia 7, a key world of the Adeptus Ministorum. When boarded by suspicious Fraterist Templars, the ship was discovered to have been rendered into little more than a slaughterhouse. Every surface was plastered with the mangled remains of the zealots that had foolishly thought to bring the Dread Knights to heel, with the leader of the deployed Templars found in the command chair, the word "No" carved into his stomach with a grisly skill and elegance. The Dread Knights' response was clear. Though the terrified Ministorum kept this barbaric display away from the deranged leader of the Administratum and Ministorum, fearful of what should happen if he made a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes his foe, and perhaps brought the full fury of the Space Marines as an institution down on their heads, the Dread Knights themselves played little part in the overthrow of Gogo Van Dyer. Instead, staying to their own hidden purposes, many believe that the Age of Apostasy was a section of the Unforgiven's history where fallen were captured in astounding numbers. Payans, much like their former homeworld of Cappadocian, is a feudal world of warring kingdoms and knightly orders. The worship of the Emperor of Mankind is the largest factor in the Dread Knights' choosing of this world as their new homeworld. During Payans' great festival, where villagers, soldiers, priests, and even the lords of the land join together in joyous, if somewhat melancholy, celebration of the God Emperor, each mortal begs for his glorious return to awaken his most beloved son, the great Lion Knight. During these celebrations, tournaments are held. The mightiest warriors gather from all over the entire planet to compete. The great duels and tests of skill win now the strong from the weak, the cunning from the lackwits, and the honorable from the conniving. Upon the completion of this great tournament, the champions are sent to the Mountain of Angels, where lies the Halls of Forgiveness, fortress monastery of the Dread Knights. Those who make it to the mighty fortress are greeted by the grim, imposing figure of an interrogator chaplain who, upon taking the measure of those who made the climb, will task them with a sacred mission, without congratulation or acknowledgement of their impressive deed. These potential brothers are tasked to slay one of the great beasts that roam the dark forest or lurk in the world's mountains, and then return with the beast's head to prove each has succeeded. Like all gene seed of the disciples of Caliban, the Dreadnoughts show no signs of physical mutation and the usual purity of all Dark Angel's descendants. Mentally, however, the sons of Paeans do not appear to have escaped the apparent curse of their founding. Accusations of wanton slaughter and seemingly random carnage have long dogged the Dreadnoughts, the sheer brutality and almost sadistic mindset having caused many in the Inquisition and indeed within the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes to call off their liquidation. Much to the chagrin of those calling for the chapter's destruction, evidence, no matter how flimsy, always manages to be found that vindicates the Dreadnoughts, many believing that the Unforgiven supply the chapter with the items to obfuscate their demented savagery. Even outside of battle, those interacting with Battle Brothers of the Knights frequently report their Astartes show a propensity towards hateful paranoia and excessive willingness to go beyond what even chapters such as the Iron Hands consider appropriate force. For the Dreadnoughts, there is nothing but loyalty to the legacy of Lionel Johnson and the hunt for the fallen. While they are almost slavishly faithful to their progenitors, the Dark Angels, that same respect is not necessarily extended to their fellow successors. To many others, the Dreadnoughts appear more akin to a chapter of arrogant medieval nobles. The most notable part of the Knights of Paean's culture is the fact that they see themselves as the Dreadwing reborn, a concept shared in part by the dementedly zealous Asmodai. This belief makes the Dreadnoughts' apparent sadism and brutality a useful tool in their arsenal in spreading fear and punishing traitors in the name of the God Emperor and the quote-unquote Lion Knight. Whilst the Dreadnoughts are not primarily engaged with the destruction of Xenos, do hold fast to the Astartes pledge to the Ordo Xenos, sending some of their mightiest warriors. Curiously, they appear to lend some of their stronger weaponry, such as their host of Hellion Fire plasma cannons, as repayment. The Death Watch allows Battle Brothers seconded from the Dreadnoughts to return any fragments of Terminator armor they manage to salvage. This deal can be dated after Ylande's betrayal. True to that chapter's nature, the Knights of Paeans who serve the Long Watch are haughty and arrogant, holding their supposed superiority above their fellows. The fleet of the Dreadnoughts is a curious thing, though many experts in the long and storied history Adeptus Astartes would assume that it, much like the World Eater's Legion of old, would be geared towards absolute annihilation. Such a reasonable assumption would be wrong. For reasons known only to themselves and their fellow Unforgiven, the Dreadnoughts fleet is geared towards the crippling and boarding of enemy ships. Many believe that this is to slake the clear bloodlust of the chapter. However, the many prisons in the cavernous expanse of the fleet speak of a far darker, sinister fate to those who cross the fleet's path. To say that relations beyond the internal politics of the Dreadnoughts are a fraught and tense affair would be a spectacular understatement. Whilst, like many other chapters descended from the first Primarch, the Dreadnoughts maintain close contact with their cousins, others, such as the Consecrators and Lion Blades, see the Order of Paeans as something akin to an unpleasant necessity. Beyond their general contempt for the majority of their fellow Unforgiven, the Dreadnoughts are incredibly loyal to the Dark Angels, though the Sons of the Lion are often wary of authorizing the Paeansian Knights. The Dark Angels' successor chapters collectively call themselves the Unforgiven, for their own inner circles are fully aware of the ancient First Legion's checkered history, and they, too, seek to absolve themselves of their ancient failure. As noted, each of the Unforgiven chapters follows the Dark Angel's tactical organization almost exactly. The Unforgiven coordinate their actions, and it is not unknown for the Supreme Grand Master of all the chapters to gather for regular summit meetings on the Rock, often to discuss their progress in the hunt for the Fallen. Interestingly, Cypher, the Lord of the Fallen himself, seems to have a particular hatred of the Dreadnoughts and has in fact rather openly attempted to have them destroyed, manipulating the Lionblade's chapter into destroying Cappadocian, the chapter's former homeworld. The Ylanle Reavers, whilst among the Dreadnoughts' most hated foes, are, unwillingly, counted as allies by the Astartes of Paeans due to their loyalty to the Unforgiven and commitment to the hunt for the Fallen. Led by the eponymous Ylanle, this renegade band of Space Marines are perhaps representative of the worst success of the Dreadnoughts, willing to unleash any manner of cruelty and carnage where they believe those oldest of traitors lurk. while the Dread Knights under Lord Paladin Ashkelon and his predecessors have managed to at least maintain the appearance of honorability and respectfulness, even if that veneer is thin indeed. The Ylanli Reavers can more or less be seen as the chapter truly unmasked. Led by their former Lord of the Deathwing, Ylanli, the Snake Knight, as he is known within his former chapter, the Ylanli Reavers are the sadistic violence of the Dread Knights without their foresight. The renegades have currently been forced to seek refuge in Comorug's Null City, serving as mercenaries and gladiators while they recover after a combined assault by the weakened Dread Knights, contrary to Azrael's orders. Grey Knights and Marines Malevolent nearly annihilated them. Like all Dark Angel's successor chapters, the Dread Knights loathe those renegade Space Marines who were once members of the Dark Angel's Legion that spat upon their oaths to the Lion and followed the arch-betrayer Luther into damnation. The Dread Knights relentlessly pursue the fallen across the breadth and width of the galaxy, determined to capture them and force them to repent in order to achieve forgiveness in the eyes of the Emperor. As with the other members of the Unforgiven, the Dread Knights have a fierce feud with the Volca Fenrica that dates back to the Great Crusade and the rivalry between Lehman Russ and Lionel Johnson. While with the Dark Angels and other descendants of the Lord Caliban see it more as something of a difference of attitude and methods, although still a combative rivalry, the Dread Knights themselves see themselves as above the space wolves and treat them with naked contempt. The wolves, for their part, are horrified and outraged by what little they have discovered of the Dread Knights.